بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All praise is due to Allah, the one and only one God. May the peace and blessings be upon his beloved Prophet Muhammad Sallu ala Rasulillah Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. We Redefined is our theme and topic for tonight. In the next couple hours, inshallah ta'ala, I believe we will be listening and benefiting from the people who can relate the most to such a topic. It gives me a great honor to welcome our three speakers. I will introduce them in few words, one after another, and I would like you to welcome every one of them when they take the stage. Our first speaker is really an icon in the US. I personally believe that every convention or conference without him is not a true one, for he brings the vibrant and the type of connection that is needed for all sessions. If it was just the few minutes that he will speak, or if it was his tone, or if it was his sincerity, his love to Islam, his love to humanity, and his love to his Muslim community. He is the Amir of the Muslim Alliance of North America, MANA. He is the Imam of Masjid At-Taqwa in New York. He is Imam Siraj Wahhaj. Please give him a hand. The second thoughts will be from a thinker. When I first took his bio, the first word that I saw after his name was professor. But I believe a true word that I feel personally to introduce him with, and I make dua that he will be among those that the Prophet mentioned sallallahu alaihi wasallam by saying, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala muallimi an-nas al-khayr. That Allah and his angels bring blessings, the angels by the power of Allah, on those who are in the business of teaching people good. And he is in the business of paving the way of understanding the term al-khayr for people on an intellectual level. As a professor, as a thinker, he is the bright star in our convention for tonight. The professor of contemporary Islamic studies at the Oxford University, teaching also as the faculty of theology in Oxford, visiting professor, faculty of Islamic studies in Qatar, in Japan. Please give it a welcome, a good heart welcome for Professor Tariq Ramadan. ضيفنا الكريم والكبير، ولعلي أتحدث بالعربية، هو من إذا سمعتموه عشتم معه لحظة الوصال مع الله. ما إن جلست أستمع إليه إلا استطاع أن يأسرني بكلماته وينقلني من عالم الذي أنا فيه إلى عالم صاغه لنفسه ولكنه قاد أمة من خلفه ربما يظنها الناس محصورة في تونس، ولكنها أمة الحبيب محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، إذ تستمع له فتعيش معه حالة الوصال مع الله بصدقه وبقدرته على تطويع اللغة للتعبير عما يجول ويكون في خاطره وقلبه ووجدانه، فلا تملك إلا أن تشاركه هذه اللحظات، فتكون بذلك من السعداء، وتطلب إلى جانب صحبة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم في الجنة بإذن الله صحبة الأبرار، نحسبهم كذلك من أمثال هذا الضيف الكريم مؤسس حركة النهضة في تونس الأستاذ والمربي الشيخ Abdelfattah Mourou. Please welcome him. Every speaker will be given a chance to speak for 25 minutes. I will be holding these notes. They gave it to me, the 5 minutes and the 2 minutes. So excuse me if I do have to show it up to you. I'm sure you will be precise in your time. As we have mentioned before, it's about the new we, redefined. Who are we? And I believe the track is between two things: the track of Islam and the track of citizenship, al-muwatana. Every one of these speakers will speak about the relativity of this understanding, if it was on an intellectual level or if it was on a practical level. But let us start with the practical issues, because we need to look forward as how to see ourselves, and you defined as we, with Imam Siraj Wahhaj. Give him a hand, please.
Assalamu alaikum. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. Wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu, amma ba'd. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. وإذ قال موسى لقومه وإذ قال عيسى ابن مريم يا بني إسرائيل إني رسول الله إليكم. The Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, said that I have been given 5 things that no other prophet was given before me. One of them is that every prophet came to their people in particular, but I've been sent to mankind, all of them. Qul ya ayyuhan nas inni rasulullahi ilaykum jami'a. Say, oh mankind, say Muhammad, oh mankind, I am the messenger of Allah to all of you. So that Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, not only the prophet to the Arabs, but he's also a prophet to the American people, to the European people, to the people in China, and everywhere on the earth. He is the last messenger of Allah, and he's the messenger of Allah to all of us. So the question becomes, what then is our role as Muslims in America? I'd like to bring before you tonight 3 points, 3 major points. Point number 1. There are 2 kinds of models that we can look at. The first model is the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, as uswatun hasana. He is a perfect example. And when Allah the Almighty gave him the commandment to go to his near relatives, he called them together and asked them the question, if I told you that there was in the valley an enemy about to attack you, would you believe me? They said yes. Why? Because you've always told the truth, you never told a lie. So this is the model of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, is a perfect model. He's al-Amin, he's trustworthy. But then there's another model that I think many people miss. It is the model where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Quran, Allahu waliyyu ladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah is the guardian of those who believe. He brings them from the darkness and He brings them into the light. And this is another model. It is, if you would, the Malcolm model. It is the model of those who used to be in darkness, those who used to be in Jahiliyyah. Sheikh Tariq, there's a difference between you and I in one way. I mean, many ways. But I'll just mention one. Allah has blessed you to be from a long line of scholars, pious family members, and you were born into the faith. But people like me, Imam Zaid, Shakir, Hamza Yusuf, Abdul Hakim Quick, Abdul Hakim Jackson, Mourou Salah Khan, people like us weren't born to Muslim parents. No one would wake me up for Fajr prayer or encourage me to fast in the month of Ramadan like you. My mother wouldn't read me the Quran like your mother read to you the Quran. My father wouldn't take me by the hand to go to the masjid, for I wasn't in the masjid. I was a Christian. And indeed, the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, said, كُلُّ مَلُودٌ عَلَى الْفِطْرَ فَأَبَوَاهُ يُحَوِّدَانِهِ وَيُنَصِّرَانِهِ وَيُمَجِّسَانِهِ. Every one of you by nature is born a Muslim, but your parents make you a Christian or a Jew or Magian. True. Not only was I a Christian, but I was a Baptist because my mother was a Baptist. Had my mother been a Catholic, I would have been Catholic. So we have a different model. In the Christian church, they used to have, they call it testifying. And they used to testify by getting up and tell the people what Jesus did for them. In this model, from us as converts and reverts, you can find in the early Sahaba. And I'd like to give you one example. Go back to the first migration to Abyssinia. And by the way, brothers and sisters, a hobby of mine is that whenever I see people, I try to determine to look at them to see what country they're from. I was in the airport last week in Dallas, Texas, and I was buying a newspaper. And the woman there who was giving me the newspapers, I said, I want to guess what country you're from. I said, you're from Ethiopia? She said, yes. And I said, you know what? The Muslims owe a debt of gratitude to the Ethiopians because in our first migration, we migrated not to Medina, but we migrated to Abyssinia. And it was the king, the Ethiopian king, and the Najashi, who gave refuge to the Muslims. I want you to listen to the words of a great Muslim, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, radiallahu anh, who was a spokesman for those 80 Muslims. And when Amr ibn al-As and the others from the Quraysh tried to get them back to Mecca, listen to the speech, a part of it, that Ja'far gave. Very beautiful. O king, we were a people in the state of ignorance, a jahiliyyah, and immorality, and worshiping idols, and eating flesh of dead animals, committing all sorts of abomination and shameful deeds, treating guests badly, and strong among us exploited the weak. We remained in this state until Allah sent us a prophet, one of our own people whose lineage, truthfulness, trustworthiness, and integrity was well known to us. And he goes on to talk about what we used to be. I would like to introduce you to a brother. He's a good friend of mine. He's not here right now. He's in New York City. But after I tell you about him, I want you to get from me his number, and he will come to your city. Because what we're talking about tonight in the next few moments is the nahnu, the we. The role that we as Muslims must play in America, and we must claim America as our own. It's not their country, it's our country, all of us. His name is Abdul Rahman. Abdul Rahman was a man before Islam, was on drugs for 30 years. And he made a speech that I got hold of, and that was one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard in my life. I listened to it maybe 30 different times. I went to one city, and I gave it to the youth to listen to it, and they lost it, but it was one of the great speeches. I let my children listen to it. And you ought to hear his story. This man would tell us how he would go on garbage cans and eat from the garbage cans. He became sick with the AIDS virus. He's about my height, 6 feet tall, and he had gone down to 123 pounds. And while he was in the hospital, he went down to 50 pounds. And the doctor told his family that you ought to gather the family members together because I don't think that he would make it through the night. That man said, "Doctor, please leave my room. I like to talk to someone who knows." And he called upon Allah. That was 19 years ago. If you look at him today, he's a picture of health. Here's a man who used to be that way, but not that way anymore. So point number one, there are people in our community that you would never invite to your conferences, you would never invite to speak at your fundraisers. But there are people like Brother Abdul Rahman and other Muslim brothers and sisters who came out of prison. 350,000 Muslims in the prisons of America. Many of them went in there as non-Muslim but came out as Muslim. 350,000. And one of the greatest contributions that they've made to America, they may not be doctors, they're not scientists, they're not engineers, they're not school teachers. But one of the great contributions that they made is from the wisdom of the Prophet, peace and blessing be upon him, when he was telling people to give charity. Someone said that, what if I don't have charity to give? He said, well, help your brother, that's charity. What if I don't have something to give, and what if I can't help? He said, well, give a smile, and that's charity. What if I don't even have that? He said, well, stop your hands from doing evil, and that will be charity. So the first thing, that there are a lot of Muslims in this country, and the only contribution that they've made to America is that they have stopped their hands from doing evil, and those things that they used to do, they no longer do. That's point number one. Point number two, Martin Luther King Jr., I think it was 1967, gave a speech in Cleveland, in one of the poorest areas of Cleveland, in a high school. And in that day, he was telling the students and the teachers and the parents that you ought not be satisfied just being a Negro doctor. And what Martin Luther King Jr. was saying is that people didn't think much of African Americans. They didn't think much of Negroes. So they said, well, you know, he's a good Negro doctor, he's a good Negro lawyer, he's a good Negro teacher. What they was trying to say is that they were somehow a little less than everybody else. And from that motto, Martin Luther King Jr. was telling them to be the very best at whatever you can be. And so my second point is that you as a Muslim are in fact a Muslim doctor. You are a Muslim lawyer in the very highest standards. If you look at the number of Muslim doctors and physicians in America, more than 20,000, some of the best in the country. In this second model, if you're going to help America, make America better, then you ought to be the best of whatever you are. Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the greatest basketball players in NBA history, one of the 50th greatest, one of the greatest centers ever, had more block shots than any other center. He came into the NBA, I think, 1984, the same year that Michael Jordan came in, the same year that Charles Barkley came in, same year John Stockton came in, some of the greatest basketball players, and he was the #1 draft choice from a team called Houston, Texas. So in this model, whatever you are, whatever you do, wherever you are, as a Muslim, you ought to be the best. People look at us and they see the contradictions of the Muslims. I'll never forget, I went one day into a Muslim grocery store where I go and get my newspapers. Owned by Muslims, Muslim workers there. And one day I went into the store and I saw a sign that I never saw before. It said, "No alcohol sold here." And I said, Allahu Akbar. And I was proud to see my Muslim brother and sister in a store saying, "No alcohol sold here." But then when I looked carefully, it said, "No alcohol sold here on Sundays before 2 p.m. So we have to get rid of the contradictions. One of the richest men in the world, a man by the name of Sheldon Adelson, according to Forbes, the 14th richest man in the world, some $27 billion. And you know how he got his money? Casinos. 76 casinos. It is said that this man spent $100 million on the past election, and he supported 8 candidates. All of them lost. I'm just saying. In this model, Muslims know that Allah has never put any restriction on how much money you can make, but there's only 2 things. Min ayna iktasabahu wa fima anfaqahu. How did you earn it and how did you spend it? And we will tell people like Sheldon Adelson that we don't want your money, we don't want your drug money, we don't want money that you get from alcohol, we don't want money that you get from drugs, we don't want money that you get from gambling. So if a Muslim is going to help America and make America a better nation, then Muslims themselves must be a good Muslim. Just be a good Muslim and be the very best of whatever you are, even if you're a student, be a good Muslim student. The MSA must be the best MSAs, the best student associations on the college. You must be the very best because you're a Muslim, and Allah has prescribed for you proficiency and excellence in everything that you do. Yes, number one, stop your hands from doing evil. Number 2, be the very best of whatever your profession is. I remember after 9/11, there's a man in New York called Curtis Sliwa. And he said, "I'm going to go around all the masjids and I'm going to see how many masjids have American flags flying at their masjid. You're not going to intimidate me and make me carry an American flag. The American flag doesn't make me an American. I'm not caught up with symbolism. That's merely symbolism. I'm not going to have an American flag to appease you. If I want to have an American flag, I'll put an American flag. I'm not going to put a lapel on me because you think that it makes me a better American. That doesn't make me a better American. I'm not caught up with symbolism. I go to the store, sometimes I go shopping in the grocery store or the supermarket, and I go into that generic section, you know what I mean, where the prices are cheaper. And there are some don't want to go to those prices, they want to go to the brand names. But when you take time to look at the ingredients, you will see the same ingredients. What you're paying for advertisement. It's the same thing. And that's why we have an African proverb, it's not what you call me, but what I answer to. And so Muslims must be true Muslims for real. Don't fake it. Be true Muslims for real. And now in my conclusion. And this is the most difficult part for us to see, but I'm going to try to drive it home, inshallah. I have a number of identities. All of us do. I admit to you, I proudly admit to you that Ana Aswad, I'm black. No, that's a good thing. Oh, I love it. No. Well, let me tell you why. I'll tell you why I love it. You know, I was in Atlanta, Georgia a couple of days ago, and a brother wrote a book. His name is Abdurrahman Muhammad. I read the book. One line in there that really caught my attention. He said, "There is no one on earth that I'd rather be than myself." And I love that. I don't want to be nobody but me, who I am. It is He, Allah, who created you in the wombs of your mother as He pleased. If Allah created me a black man, I'm happy to be a black man. So I am African. Ana Afrikiyun. My roots are from Africa. I remember I was in Jamaica, and there was an expert who can look at you and tell you what tribe you're from. I said, "Oh, do me. Where am I from? Because you got to remember that African Americans, unlike Hakeem Olajuwon, who came from Nigeria, he's a Nigerian American. People like me, my ancestors were slaves, and we don't know what country we came from." I said, "What about me?" He looked up and down and said, "Mandingo." I said, "That's good." So, Ana Aswad, Ana Afrikiyun, Ana Amrikiyun, I'm American. I ain't ashamed of that. I'm born in America. Freed Zachariah, he said, "I am an American not by the accident of birth, but because I chose." No, I got 7 minutes, Sheikh. No, I'm sorry. Nope. I got the official clock right here, and I ain't moving until I'm finished. I have no idea what I was talking about. Yeah. Now, if you think about it, think about this. If I don't want to be here, I know how to leave here. I'm here in America because I want to be here. If you look at the two models, Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, Alhaji Malik Shabazz, both of them critics of America, but at the same time, they were Americans. So I am American, but my greatest identity is I'm a Muslim. Why is that my greatest identity? Because I have never read anywhere in any Quran, any hadith, any scholar, there's not one person in Al-Jannah because they're American. There's not one person in Jannah because they're black. There's not one woman in hell because she's a woman. You are in Jannah because of your good deeds and Allah's mercy. You in hell because of your bad deeds. So around, I hear this all the time, America is the greatest nation on the earth. America is the greatest nation on the earth. It may or may not be true. But the question is not, is America the greatest nation on the earth? But the question is, what standard will we use to judge if a nation is great or not? If you get a chance, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, reported that our 15-year-olds rank 17th in the world in science, 25th in math. We rank 12th among developed nations in college graduation. We come in 79th in elementary school enrollment. We are 27th in life expectancy, 18th in diabetics, and first in obesity. I'm just saying. I close with this. I was in Dallas, Texas. One of the great masjids, you have to go there, was built in 1968, at that time called Mosque number 48 in the Nation of Islam. First masjid in Dallas. Imam Warathuddin Muhammad, rahimahullah, may Allah bless him, came in 1975 and changed the Nation of Islam and brought him to the Sunnah. Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah brings them from the darkness into the light. Alhamdulillah, that masjid now has fed over 20,000 people in 1 year. And there was a man who used to go online every day to get food because he was hungry. That man now today is Brother Ismail. He became Muslim. While it is good to give and feed the poor and give good health care and Muslim doctors and give medical care, but that isn't the greatest thing. If you want to really help America, my final point is what Allah says in Quran, كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله. You are the best of people evolved for mankind because you enjoin the good and you forbid the evil. Never forget who you are. That's who you are. You're not a good American because you agree with the president and everything he does. I don't agree with the president. I don't agree with President Obama, even though he's the first Muslim president of America, even though, I'm just saying, I don't agree with everything he says. You can't say, oh, America, I love you. And you see him going off the cliff. I mean, the real cliff. I love you. Assalamu alaikum. Bye. No. If you want to help America, do what the Prophet said, peace and blessing be upon him, to your Muslim brother. If you want to help them, if he's oppressing, stop the oppressing. If he's doing good, help them in the good. In that way, you help them, you make America a better nation. Assalamu alaikum.
Jazakallah khair, Imam. And he gave us 3 minutes out of his time. May Allah reward him, but I truly and sincerely say we can sit down for hours and listen to his speech. Give him one more applause, please. Jazakallah khair. We will move into understanding the term we, nahnu. And this is a talk, as we say in Arabic, fil usul, and the origins of the concept. And I do believe that we need to understand such basic terms. Our children have a real huge problem of identifying themselves. I think from the wisdom of what Dr. Tariq Ramadan will share with us, we can go back home and we as parents can bring this message to our children, and it will be the new move that will make us in the true path of Renaissance with the new We Redefined. Dr. Tariq Ramadan, please welcome him.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. In fact, I am in between two teachers And you should know that when I first started to come to the United States, one of the figures that was already working and have been working for so many years on the ground, and I was impressed, and I knew him before even I met him the first time, was Imam Siraj Wahhaj. Because my first connection to your country, by the way, was not through the immigrants and the Arabs who came in the country. The connection that I got through my father, rahimahullah, when I was very young was first through Malcolm X, because he was in touch and he came to Geneva and he met my father in the 60s. And this was the first connection, and my father, when he used to come here, was in fact in touch with the African American community. And I was following what was happening in the country, and of course you can't get any knowledge of what happened and what is happening in the country if you are not in touch with the work that Imam Siraj Wahhaj was doing at the grassroots level with the Muslim community and at the national level with the brothers and the sisters who were setting organizations in the country. And my tribute to him is a deep one, a spiritual and a brotherly one to start with. Now, we learn from our experience in the West, in the United States of America, in Canada, in European countries, and also in Australia, something that, in fact, now we have to ponder. Sometimes, out of our multiple activities and organizations, we forget, in fact, to think about where we are and what we should do in the future. In fact, sometimes we have to stop and to think about our vision. Do we have a clear vision of what we want based on who we are and where we are? Because the discussion about the new we is not only about an identity question. It has to do with where we are, in which way we are dealing with the environment. So we keep on repeating, and we have been saying this for years, that, and this is as an introduction, something which we need to think about. We say we are at home. And we are at home, and it's very important what you said about, for example, my own experience as someone who was born and raised in Switzerland. I'm from the second generation, but that's true that I came and I was born within a family with all the cultural and religious background. There is no merits to what I'm doing. I'm just following something which was before me and was given to me, walhamdulillah. So that's true that we have now people coming to Islam and people coming in the West from different backgrounds and cultural backgrounds, from Asia, from the Middle East, from Africa. And we have people who are converting to Islam. And all together, what we say now in our countries in the West, we are at home. This is home for us. Now, what we are saying sometimes with our tongue and our intellect is not still in our heart and in our feelings. So it's not enough to say it. It's now very important for us to feel that this is home. And the feeling is different because we are also having people for whom the first target is to make us feel alien to our home. So there is something which is a psychological war that we are witnessing everywhere. And for years, I thought it was only in Europe. In fact, it's not. For the last 5 years, what you are witnessing in this country, it's very dangerous. The Tea Party or the neoconservative, they are playing on a very, very subtle ground. Because, in fact, they are not denying the fact that you might have the citizenship. They are denying the fact that you are part of the narrative. You are Muslims, and by the only fact that you are Muslims, you are not truly American. And this is something which is not formal. You cannot come with law. It's not enough. And if you don't get it in your mind and your understanding, you might keep on repeating, we are at home, but the psychological and the intellectual response that you are giving to the people is not the right one. Because you don't use the right concepts and you don't use the right terminology and you don't get it yourself because they put you in a situation where you are on the defensive. So we need something which is a double revolution, a psychological revolution and an intellectual revolution. And sometimes when I'm writing, what is something it's amazing is in what I'm writing, sometimes I feel, and I have, not only I feel, but I see that some people of other faiths, non-Muslims, they get what I'm saying, talking about much better than Muslims themselves. They say, oh, we got you now, we get the message. Because I'm really talking now about something which is a radical reform of our minds and understandings. In what is our relationship to the environment? So if we look and we say, what is home? Remember what the Prophet ﷺ did when he arrived in Medina. It's not only, this question about, he came and he built mosques, which at that time was very important. It's a message when you start building mosques. And this is what we are doing. We did this. The Muslims, when they first arrived in Asia, Africa, the United States of America, Canada, Europe, everywhere, the first thing that we did as the first institutions that we had was building mosques. Meaning two things. We are at home and the center of our presence is La ilaha illallah. So what you said about our identity is, it's not because we are at home that we forget the direction. The direction, al-qibla, remains the qibla. Al-qibla hiya la ilaha illallah. And now we are here. And as we heard from the Prophet ﷺ, one of the characteristics and the privileges that he had is the earth is a mosque. Wherever you go, this is a masjid. Masjid means a place where you can prostrate, a place where you can pray. Meaning, I am at home the very moment I say, La ilaha illallah. This is home for me. And as long as I'm not oppressed and I'm not attacked, the people around me, if they accept the fact and give me freedom of conscience and freedom of worship, they are not enemies. لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم أن تبروهم وتقسطوا إليهم. تبروهم is the heart. تقسطوا is the rules. It's you can show affection and friendship to the people. They are not attacking you. This is your heart. And the rules is, this is the law of the land. And we don't have a problem with this. So this is what the Prophet ﷺ did with the mosque. But it's not only what he did. He started to connect the relationship between al-mu'akha, meaning brotherhood, between the people who were there and the people who came. Third thing that he did, which is very important, we don't talk about this very much, is that he changed the rules of the market. First, knowing something which is important. Never forget that. If you want to be part of a society as to the narrative, think about where lies power. And don't try to avoid talking about power. Anyone who is telling you, oh, don't talk about power, it's more powerful than you. Power, it's very important, and money and finance and the way it's dealt with in this country. Do you think that the only fact that you're electing the president of this, the United States of America, it's giving you all power? No. Your own president, Bill Clinton, a few years ago said this country is run by 1% of the people, the powerful, the people who have the money. And you know that money is power. If you look now at what is happening in the Muslim majority countries, Tunisia, Egypt, you can get it. It's not enough to be the president of Egypt or Tunisia. If your economy is just an assisted economy, you don't have power. You can't decide. It's going to be the IMF and it's going to be the World Bank deciding for you, if not the state, if not Washington. So we need, no. So, and the takbir inside, think about it, don't shout. I don't like shouting takbir. I think and I like meditating takbir. Meditating it. Allahu Akbar means Allahu Akbar with your heart and not always with your mouth. So the point here is very much to get this right in our understanding that the Prophet ﷺ, what he did was this. And then we can understand that by doing this, he helped the people to feel at home in Medina by looking at the symbols of the presence, the relationship with the people and the places and the power that we have to deal with, and especially in the market at that time, it was important. For us, we need to get this right from where power is coming in which way we have to deal with the country. Now, having said that, when I talk about a cultural and a psychological and intellectual revolution, I mean revolution in the very meaning of the word revolution, to change our perspective. And when I'm talking about the psychological thing, it's very important for us to understand that. We have to value the cultures of origin, and that's very good. As, you know, you talked about my family. Yes, I'm an Egyptian by memory. And the first one in Europe or in the West who is going to challenge me about my culture of origin, I'm going to challenge him. I'm proud of my origins. Because this is a great culture. And our cultures, wherever you are, from wherever you come, Pakistan, Indonesia, Turkey, Africa, or Egypt, or Morocco, whatever, it's something that you have to value. Now we have to be very careful. To value your memory and your origin doesn't mean that you are jailed by your origin. The origin is where I'm coming from, and I give value to this. This is something which is important. But I'm not going to transform my religion into something which is cultural and only culture. And you know, this is something which is very important. Even in our relationship to language. Sometimes yourself, you are with this psychology nurturing an inferiority complex. You know, the Arabic language is the language of Quran, but Arab cultures are not the cultures of Islam. Not the only. And when you get this, you understand that many things in the American culture or the African culture or the non-Muslim majority cultures are very Islamic. Very Islamic. And sometimes we need to learn. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying in the Quran, لِتَعَارَفُوا, we made you nations and tribes in order for you to know each other. It means get the wisdom and get the right things from others. Because sometimes you find in them something which is better than what is in your culture. And as I am an Egyptian by memory, I know that in the Egyptian culture, there are many things that are not Islamic. So the psychological dimension is be careful. Don't idealize any discourse given into Arabic, and don't idealize even this perception that if you don't speak Arabic, you cannot be a good Muslim. That's not true. And even in the way we teach Arabic in these countries, we have to be very cautious. Don't try to make the people to whom you teach Arabic people at the level of being Arabs. They are not. They are not going to speak Arabic as the Arabs. They need to speak Arabic to get access to the scriptural sources and to be able at least to understand. But to say, speak Arabic it's not possible. You can't in the United States have the same level of languages. At least get this right in your understanding. When you put the right objectives, you get the right methodology to teach a language. Not the way we are doing it now. Because we are putting the level so high that at the end, there is a gap between the knowledge that we have and the objectives. And we keep on having a teaching of Arabic which is not efficient. We need to be more humble in what we want to reach, but more committed and disciplined in the methodology to reach it. This is in the way we deal with our language. And this is also psychological. It's the way we look at it in our understanding. So by saying this, and this is also the psychological dimension, is, okay, you are in this country and you have an American culture with memories. You keep all this together and you stick to the principles. This is the way we need to deal with our religion. Now, the intellectual revolution that I'm talking about, and you know, I wrote a book about the radical reform. It's not, by the way, it's not only for Western Muslims, it's also for Muslims in Muslim majority countries. By saying, look, now what is important is when you want to become the subject of your history and not only dealing with rules and al-ahkam al-shar'iyya wal-fiqh wa usul al-fiqh, if you want to have this vision that Islam is for all places and all times, the intellectual revolution is to understand you are in this country ulama al-waqi'. You are the people who are knowledgeable about this country, and you should come with this knowledge and understand that you can't rely on scholars coming from Muslim majority countries to give you the answer for your time, in your place, on your behalf. That's not going to happen. So this is why in the future you need to have scholars educated here, understanding not only the language of speaking English, no, the culture, the psychology, the priorities, the challenges. This is important. So this is why Muslims, when they say we are at home, should institutionalize their presence in the country. We need now to have institutions where we are training ulama wa shuyukh here in this country. Yes, you can go there and get I did that. I went back to Egypt because I had nothing in Geneva. I went with one-to-one at Taqlidi. I have teachers. They gave me the ijazat out of one-to-one because I had nothing. But now we have people, all these organizations, that's your business now. We are at home, show it. Not show it with what you say, show it with the institutions you have in this country. Institutionalize the Muslim presence as Americans. This is home. This is where we can say, that's where we are. The Prophet ﷺ went to Medina. He was not going back, and the companion were not going back to Mecca to get the knowledge. At the end, in Medina, we had the scholars. And then we had scholars everywhere, because the scholars should be the people who know, coming from ilm al-waqi' wa fahm al-islam wa nusus. So this is so important when we talk about the next stage. So the first, mosques. The second, organizations. The third, institutions. Institutions, solid. And we, by the way, give money to institutions, not only to mosques. Because the Muslims are very quick to give money to mosques. Give money to institutions. Understand that this is important in the way we deal with it. Now, when we speak about this, we also have to understand that where are we in this country? Because all this discussion about the new we, or the we that we are talking about, it was a manifesto that I wrote 10 years ago, saying a manifesto for a new we, calling for a new we, which is this double revolution, psychological revolution and intellectual revolution. And you know, by writing like this, I can tell you something, that many of my fellow brothers and sisters, they don't read. And I got the best criticism and the best understanding of the books coming from people who are not Muslims. Say, that's very dangerous what you are saying. Because if the Muslims understand what you are saying about, you can be very dangerous to the populists and the people who want to make you the enemy of the West. Because we are not the enemy of the West. I think that we are reconciling the West with the very essence of our universal principles. If we understand Islam the right way, if we understand why we are experiencing this historical moment of the Muslim presence in the West. Now, by saying this is something which also is psychological. You know, in the past, the ulama, you come to the ahadith and you go back to the verses of the Quran. You won't find in Islam, Dar al-Islam and Dar al-Harb. All this is coming from scholars who were looking at their time, at the world the way it was, and they were saying, you are safe in Dar al-Islam, you are not so safe in Dar al-Harb. So they created areas coming from their understanding. It's a human projection onto reality. Is this our situation now? That's not. And it couldn't be. So this is why scholars started to deal with it in another way. Now this morning you heard that some scholars are talking about Dar al-Dawah. Think about it from people who are here with you, Americans. And you come and say, you know what? I'm an American and I am in Dar al-Dawah. His or her understanding is you are in Dar al-Dawah, meaning you are trying to convert me. You try to call me. I'm not doing this. I'm not here first to call the people. What I understood from the verse that was quoted right now, كنت خير أمة أخرجت للناس. So you are the best community. And the other verse is وكذلك جعلناكم أمة وسطا لتكونوا شهداء على الناس. And I keep on repeating this. Your role as Muslims at home is to be witness to the truth before human beings. This is what it means. So this is why I'm not now dividing the world. I think that in Tunisia, or in Egypt, or in Indonesia, or in Malaysia, where you are, in Muslim majority countries, every single Muslim man and woman who understand Islam should be a witness to the truth before people. Sometimes you have to be the witness to your own fellow Muslims. They don't get the right understanding of Islam. Many Muslims are not here. So be a witness. Don't try to convert the people. Be a witness and let Allah do the job. If the people are going to come to Islam, it's going to be through your good behavior, not your obsession with counting the converts. We are not here to count the converts. We are here to count to assess the quality of our Islam. And if our Islam is qualitatively different, it will make the difference. It will make a difference in the future. So this is why the world, the global world, the globalized world now is Dar al-Shahada for all of us. This is where we bear witness to the truth before human beings. And this is what we need to be in this country, in the West. Now, if we go further than that, I think that it's important to understand something that I myself, with so many scholars we experience. For years, we were told in the West, in the United States as well as in Europe, you know what? You have to abide by the law of the country. So the American law, the Swiss law, the French law, and you heard about all this story, people coming and telling you, you will be true citizens the very moment you abide by the law. And then what we did is to come back, and we had the Fiqh Council in the States, we had the European Council in Europe, we had councils everywhere working on what? Working on fiqh issues. In which way, from an Islamic viewpoint, we can deal with the legal framework that we have in the States, or we have in Canada, or we have in Europe, and try to find a solution. And we were dealing with the flexibility of Islamic fiqh, with the latitude of the legal framework that we have in the West. And we need the job. Many new visions, many new fatwa were coming from scholars. That's all good. But in fact, this was the first step, and now we understand that it's not going to be enough. It's not going to be enough to tell the people, I abide by the law of the country. I don't have a problem with the American law. I don't have a problem with the legal framework in this country. The problem is not about the legal framework. And get it right now. If you listen to what is coming from the populists in the West, what you have, the new Islamophobes and all the rhetoric, they don't talk about the legal framework because they don't care about this. They are creating controversies to challenge not the fact that you abide by the law, but that you belong to the common narrative. In fact, if you listen to the people, I don't know if you heard the group who was behind all this Sharia bill controversy by saying we don't want to implement Sharia. They took the law, but to create something which was not this. The point was not the law. The point is to create a problem with an Islamic reference. In fact, it's to make you as Muslims foreign citizens or outsiders within. In fact, it's to create a controversy and to push you to say, no, we don't have a problem, we abide by the law. And you keep on repeating and repeating that you are faithful to the common legal framework. But that's not the point. The point is the controversies themselves are spreading around the fact that you are on the defensive, that you are not within the American narrative. Exactly the same with the minarets in Switzerland. I'm a Swiss citizen. I was dealing with these populists, and in fact, they don't care. The problem is masjid, the mosques within the public sphere is the alien element. You might be a Swiss citizen, but your mosques are not our culture. You don't belong to the narrative. In fact, the problem is the narrative, is the common understanding of who we are. And as Muslims, you need to get this right now. That you need to get the knowledge not to accept anyone who is putting you on the defensive. And this is the intellectual revolution and psychological revolution that we need now to understand that the true question has to do with the nation and not to accept to be citizens or second-class citizens or foreign citizens. This is a new status. We have a sociologist in the Netherlands, I'm okay. I'm with time. Okay. No, okay. I'm following as well. We have a sociologist, Wilhelm Schenkel, in the Netherlands, and you heard about the new, it was perceived as a very liberal society, and he said, we created a new concept which is moral citizenship. So you can get the passport, but there is something which is you need to prove more than you are a true citizen. So you keep on proving and proving and proving by, the people are questioning the way you educate. You even have people coming at home and say, which language you speak with your kids? It's not of your business. It's not of your business, but the point is, if you speak Arabic as Moroccan coming to the country, it means that you are not very much integrated into the narrative, because in this country, we speak Dutch. And in our understanding, we speak Dutch and Arabic and English and more languages. So this reductive identity is something that we don't like. But we have to be confident to be able to say, that's not a problem to speak Dutch. But I also want to speak many other languages. I'm not going to get to this business which is defensive identity. I want multiple identities, and I don't have a problem with this. And you have to challenge the people who are reductive in the way they deal with identity. We have multiple identities, and I keep on repeating this, and you have to be proud of this. Your memories, your status as citizens, your religion. You are not going to die. If someone say, never respond to the question of someone who is telling you, what are you first? What is your first identity? Sometimes, you know what? Be careful. The question itself is putting you outside the narrative. By the question. So question the question. And sometimes you have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to respond to this question. It's a silly question. Silly question. Because I have multiple identities. I'm going to vote. I'm a Swiss. But now I'm going to die. I'm not going to die with my passport. I'm going to die with my faith. I'm going to die with the very meaning of life. So I'm not going to die as a Swiss. And coming to Allah saying, I am a Swiss. I was a good Muslim, yes or no? And that's a very important point. Multiple identities means that you are able to be confident with all the dimensions of who you are in this society. Now, the new narrative means, just to go to my conclusion quite quickly, it means that if we want to be involved in this, we have responsibilities. We have duties. We have obligations. And the first, it's very important, wherever you are in a society, if you want to belong to the narrative. By the way, the next book that I'm writing will be exactly on this, towards a new narrative. Towards a new narrative means the way we build this new we should be based not only on the legal framework, but on the psychological, cultural dimension. And the first obligation that we have as citizens in a society is to study history. Because the narrative of a society, it's also coming from its history and the memories. In this country, if you want to be very true to the essence of the United States of America, it's not enough to get the history of the last, and be happy with the first Afro-American who is a president. It's deeper than this. What do you know about the Native Americans? What do you know about discriminations in this country? What do you know about colonization? What do you know about the struggle between whiteness and blackness in this society? Because many immigrants, they come and they buy the American dream. They know nothing about the fact that this country is also structurally based on something that has to be reformed, which has to do with races and racism. You need to get this sense of this history and the roots. Anyone who wants to deal with America as a citizen and belong to the narrative should study history and add to history his or her memory. Now, the memories of the United States of America is also based on people coming from Pakistan, coming from Morocco, coming from Africa. You have to add. Give me just 3 minutes. Is it possible? Inshallah, quickly. So this is something which it's essential. The second thing is, please, be careful, because when we speak about the legal framework and you are pushed to speak about Sharia, you know the three terms that you have: security, radicalization, Sharia is a threat, your presence, the dress and all this, you are on the defensive. The only way to get rid of this is to come back to Islam and to understand. If you want to be in the American narrative, there is one way which is paradoxical but the right way. In fact, it's to come back to the spiritual message of Islam. And the spiritual message of Islam, it is what makes Islam universal. You know, I wrote a book that many of you are not reading even, The Quest for Meaning, which is exactly the translation of a philosophy of pluralism by creating this new we. In fact, you come with the spiritual dimension of Islam, and you come with the very understanding of what Islam is all about. Islam is about liberating the self. Islam is asking the true question of life. Islam is about why. Islam is about what freedom means. Freedom is not to do what you want to do. Freedom is to ask if it is clear or if it is right that what you want is truly what you want. What is freedom with Allah for us? To say La ilaha illallah is a call towards freedom. Is to liberate ourselves from all this consumerist and culture of consumerism. So in the United States of America, if you come and you speak about freedom to people, when you speak about dignity, when you speak about the way you deal with Allah and the way you want to serve people, when you say to the people that what you are trying to do in the way you dress, in the fact that you pray, in the fact that you fast, is to liberate yourself, is to be a dignified human being, because you got the message, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that we gave dignity to human beings, that our message is a message of freedom and dignity and justice and solidarity. Let us come to this. Let us come to something which, in fact, our reality in the West is sending us a message. Our message, the Islamic message, is very much about love. It's not about rules. And if people are pushing you to speak about fiqh, we end up forgetting to speak about love, spirituality, and solidarity. And this is a trap. Because you can't be understood by the people who say, this is Islam, these are the rules. Yes, the rules are here, but what is the meaning? Don't we have to show to the people that the best among us is the more useful for humanity? Is it not a hadith? Is it not a hadith? It's a hadith. Don't we have to show to the people that in the name of our spirituality, a black man and a white man and an Asian man with women are all equal? Is it not a liberating message of spirituality? Is it not to show to the people that when we don't eat and don't drink during Ramadan is a message of solidarity and love, that we love Allah and we want to serve the poor people? Is it not this that we have to do? This is the way you enter into the narrative, not by responding to their attacks, but by presenting your essence. That's so important. So, no, think about it. Think about it. So, the third one, very much it's about citizenship, and we talked about this. And let me tell you something. It's good to be citizens, but you have to add to citizenship the quality, the ethical quality of citizenship. We need ethics of citizenship. And ethics of citizenship is to stop all this business that we have everywhere in the West. Everywhere in the West, there is this obsession with rights. That's fine. We are struggling for rights. We will never end up, and we never give up on rights. We are people of justice on the side of the oppressed. Muslims or not Muslims, as it was said. I don't care about your religion. You are oppressed. My religion is telling me I am on your side. I am on the side of the victims. Now, that's all good, but we need also to come with ethics of citizenship by talking about our responsibilities. You know, I wrote a book a few years ago, Muslim in Secular Society. The subtitle was Responsibilities and Rights. First, we start with responsibility, what we have to do, what we have to give to the people. So our duties as citizens is to be involved. I'm sorry, a passive Muslim, someone who is not involved in social issues, in politics, in culture, in all this as a Muslim, is not someone who is consistent with Islam. By definition, we need the ethics of citizenship. And the 2 points that I wanted to add to this is culture. You will belong to the narrative and the common narrative if you produce things that have to do with arts, creativity. My main point is that we need to push our sisters and our brothers to get more knowledge about arts, and culture in this society. And to reject the world culture and to reject everything which has to do with what is now attracting our children, it's not going to work. We need an alternative. What is our creativity today? If we want to come to the European countries and I want to show you how much we are creative, we go to Andalusia. But this was the past. What is the current and present creativity of Muslims? What are we providing to these countries in cultural terms, in creativity, in something which is, I know that some can say music is haram. That's not my position. There are 3 positions in Islam. But if you get for music and if you get to movies and if you get to art, expression, celebrate expression. This is part of the well-being. Be careful. Islam is not about only respecting rules. It's about getting well-being. We cherish. Yassiru wa la tu'assiru means feel good. And to smile is good. And to laugh is halal. So these are things that we need to cherish. And there is one last point that I wanted to add to this. Is the economic factor. Don't avoid talking about money, but in ethical terms. We need institutions now where we are producing and having institutions where we deal with this and we are involved. We need to be ethical in the way we deal with economy. We need to promote and stop having this idealized thing that there is an Islamic economy, Islamic finance, and we have all the solutions. That's not true. We are trying our best. But now we need also to be involved in this. When you go in some countries, very often you enter into the narrative depending on how powerful you are in economic terms. Very often the people are forgetting who you are, where you come from, where in economic terms you are successful. So we also need to think about this. We need to be successful in anything which has to do with our presence in economic terms, in economic power. Having said that, and coming to the last thing that I wanted to say, you are American. And this is your country. You need not only to say it, you have to feel it. It means a psychological revolution, as I said, an intellectual revolution. Get it right. Your knowledge of this country should help you to come back to the scriptural sources and to ask the right questions to the scholar here in this country. For the time being, you might have to rely on some scholars from abroad, but still this is here that we need to have the answers. Having said that, here and all what was said about the domestic values, please, and the domestic involvement, please, please, never forget that if you want to be useful to this country, is not only to speak about justice and solidarity within. Your country, it's a very important country as to what is happening in the Muslim majority countries in Africa, in the southern countries. And if you are people with multiple identities and memories, you are not here to forget where you are coming from. There is something that is happening in this country which is very dangerous for the Americans. It happened within. For years, decades, centuries, in America, the blood of black people was less valuable than the blood of white people. That's not acceptable, and it's not acceptable, and it's changing. Now I can tell you something, that sometimes when you listen to the reaction of the American people, the blood of Africans, the blood of Arabs, the blood of Palestinians is less valuable than the blood of Americans and white people. That's not acceptable. And as American citizens, make it right that if something is happening in this country where we accept on a global scale that the blood of people is more valuable than the blood of others, this is not the unity of humanity. You can speak about democracy, but this is racism and discrimination. So you are not only involved in domestic discussions, you should be involved in international issues. What is happening to people in Africa because of the American policy should be challenged by Americans. Be the critical voice within as Americans, and be courageous to be the critical voices. Don't be scared. You know what? The first sign that you don't belong to the common narrative is because you are scared. If you are scared, you are outside. If you are confident, you are within. Be confident and tell the people, I'm not going to please you. I am part of this society. I'm proud of being an American, and the fact that I'm proud to be an American is because I am ready to be critical. I will never give up speak the truth, inshallah. Wallahu a'lam wa a'la wa ahkam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
I am earth, and to earth I do belong. منها خلقناكم وفيها نعيدكم ومنها نخرجكم تارة أخرى. That's how we understand our presence on earth. All earth is ours inshallah. الآن مع مفهوم نحن من منطلق النبوة، من منطلق الذين اختارهم الله تعالى فنادوا أهلهم وإخوانهم في فترة لم ينتشر فيه الإسلام بمفهوم التوحيد، ولكنهم استخدموا لفظ يا قوم، وإلى عاد أخاهم وإلى ثمود أخاهم. هذا المنطلق وهذا المفهوم في عملية التواصل مع من هم أبناء قومك وجنسك وأصلك، المشتركات التي تجمع والتي تبني والتي تؤسس لنهضة حقيقية على مستوى الأمم. نرحب بفضيلة الشيخ عبدالفتاح مورو، فليتفضل مشكورا.
الحمد لله وكفى، وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى. بناتي أبنائي إخواني أخواتي، السادة الفضلاء من المتحدثين والمرشدين والعلماء، تحية طيبة مباركة في هذه الأمسية الطيبة التي تفتح الشهية للحديث وإن كنت محدوداً بوقت، والتي تعطيني إمكانية أن أتواصل مع إخوة كرام أحباب نفذ إلى القلب حبهم. فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يعرض علي اليوم موضوع هو شيق ومشوق، وهو موضوع يقتضي منا وقفة حتى ندرك كيف نتعامل مع غيرنا. أنتم تعلمون أيها السادة الأفاضل أن الركب الذي أرسله الله تعالى لتغيير أوضاع العالم والقيام بتلك الثورات الشعبية الهادئة في مدى التاريخ الطويل كان متكوناً من أناس بسطاء بمفهوم كسب المال أو كسب القوة. لم يرد في تاريخ النبوة أن الله أرسل واحداً منهم من صهوة جواد بسلطة آمرة ناهية قاهرة، أو أن الله أرسل واحداً منهم بقوة مال يسيل به لعاب الناس فيستولي الأول على الناس بالقهر ويستولي الثاني على قلوب الناس بالطمع. هؤلاء الأنبياء الذين غيروا وجه التاريخ وكانوا محطات هامة في حضارة الإنسان بناء وتشييدا، لم يكونوا أصحاب سطوة ولا أصحاب مال. كان نجاحهم مرده قضية واحدة، هي أنهم التحموا بشعوبهم التي بعثوا فيها وعرفوا أمراض الناس ونفسيات الناس وعقول الناس، وجاءوا بالدواء الملائم الذي يقتضيه الزمن الذي عاشوا فيه والمكان الذي بثوا فيه دعوتهم. دعوة الرسالة والنبوة هي دعوة مطلقة من حيث مبادئها، لأنها انطلقت من المطلق الذي لا يحده زمان ولا مكان، وهو الله تعالى، ولكنها تنزلت على واقع محدد في زمان محدد ومكان محدد، فكان لابد أن ترعى الزمان والمكان الذي بعث فيه الأنبياء. لذلك تردد تكرار بعثة الأنبياء كلما تغير زمن أو تغير مكان، ولم يكتف الله بنبي واحد، لأن تغيير أوضاع الناس وحاجياتهم يفرض أن يرسل إليهم من قومهم ومن أمتهم من يراعي ظروفهم الجديدة، فيأخذ بعين الاعتبار حاجياتهم المتغيرة المتجددة. وبذلك جاءت الشرائع متغيرة، وليست شريعة إبراهيم كشريعة موسى، ولا شريعة عيسى كشريعة نوح، لأن كلا بعث في زمان محدد ومكان محدد، ونجاح الدعوة يقتضي أن يأخذ النبي بعين الاعتبار وضع الناس وحاجياتهم، إلى أن بعث النبي الخاتم الذي جاء وقد تهيأت الإنسانية لأن تخاطب خطابا واحدا، بعد أن بدأت تنتفي في الناس مفرقات بينهم، وظهر للإنسانية أنها أمة واحدة، وأن الناس مرجعهم واحد ومآلهم واحد، وأن ما دخل عليهم من أسباب تفرقة بموجب لون جلد أو مكتسب حضارة أو لسان يخاطبون به غيرهم ليس إلا أوضاعا ثانوية لا تؤخذ بعين الاعتبار. فجاء الخطاب الشامل العام: يا أيها الناس إني رسول الله إليكم جميعا. وأصبحت بموجب هذا النداء البشرية جميعا أمة واحدة تخاطب خطابا واحدا، وتدعى لأمر واحد يوحد بينها، ويذكرها بأصولها الواحدة، ويذكرها بشكل خاص بأن هذه الإنسانية الواحدة مؤهلة بتكاتفها وتعاونها وتضامنها أن تبني للإنسانية مستقبل السعادة. وجاء الإسلام بهذا الاعتبار مراعيا أمرا أساسيا كان راعاه الأنبياء من قبل، وهو التودد إلى المخاطبين بتقديم حلول لمشاكلهم، بل عدم كرههم رغما عن عنتهم ورغما عن إبائهم ورغما عن رفضهم. ألم يكن نوح ينادي أولئك الذين استبعدوه بأنهم قومه: عاد وثمود، موسى، عيسى، إبراهيم، إسحاق، يعقوب، أنبياء كانوا يعتبرون أن دعوتهم مؤهلة لأن تصل إلى أقوامهم، إلى إخوانهم، إلى أناس عاشوا معهم في مكان واحد. بل إن الإعداء الذي ظهر من المدعوين لم يخلي ألسنة الدعاة من أن يخاطبوا هؤلاء المعادين بأنهم إخوانهم. ألم يكن الرسول تحت وطأة اعتدائهم وسبهم وشتمهم وتنكيلهم به وإبعاده من المسجد الحرام حتى لا ينال حق الصلاة فيه مفردا؟ كان يقول وهو ينزل عليه العذاب من قبلهم: اللهم اهد قومي فإنهم لا يعلمون. وكان يعتبرهم قومه لأنه مدعو لأن يقدم لهم الدواء. وتعلمون أن الطبيب لا يمكن أن يحلق على مريضه ولو رفض المريض الدواء، ولو سب الطبيب، ولو اعتدى على الطبيب، لأن قدر الطبيب وعزه مستمد من كونه يخدم مريضه وغايته أن يؤهله لأن يصبح سليما. الرسول صلى الله عليه وسلم وإخوانه من الأنبياء علمونا أن أحكام الشرع تتغير بتغير الزمان والمكان. رسولنا الأكرم لما كان بمكة أشعر الناس بحرمة الغناء، بل كان يسد أذنيه كلما سمع صوت مزمار قريب أو بعيد. لما انتقل إلى المدينة المنورة استقبلته بنات النجار في مدخلها بدفوف يغنين: طلع البدر علينا من ثنيات الوداع، وجب الشكر علينا، ما دعا لله داع، أيها المبعوث فينا جئت بالأمر المطاع، جئت شرفت المدينة، مرحبا يا خير داع. ماذا فعل النبي؟ هل أقصاهن وأبعدهن لأنهن يرفعن أصواتهن وهن نساء بغناء ويضربن عليه بالدفوف؟ لما دخل المدينة المنورة قدمت عليه عائشة عليها الرضوان، وأشعرته بأنها كانت مع فلانة التي زفت إلى زوجها من بني فلان. فقال النبي الأكرم: هل أخذتم معكم اللهو؟ فإن الأنصار يحبون اللهو. هل أخذتم معكم من لهو؟ فإن الأنصار يحبون اللهو. تغير الحكم بتغير المكان. وكان حبيب الله وهو في بيته يدخل عليه فتيات ليغنين لعائشة، بل قدم لعائشة مغنيتين اثنتين، قال: هذه فلانة وهذه فلانة جاءتا لتغنياك فغنتا. فلما دخل أبو بكر ليزور ابنته وهي زوجة النبي قال: أمزمار الشيطان عند رسول الله؟ قال: دعهن يا أبا بكر فإنها أيام عيد. هذا هو حصول التلاحم بين حكم الله وواقع الناس المتغير. ولذلك جاء النسخ في أحكام الله تعالى. ولذلك أشعرنا العلماء بأن ما كان مناط اجتهاد وليس فيه نص صريح يمكن أن يتغير الحكم في شأنه بتغير الزمان والمكان. وإلا ما كان للشافعي أن يخرج عن أستاذه مالك، وما كان لأحمد بن حنبل أن يخرج عن أستاذه الشافعي، وما كان لداود الظاهري أن يخرج عن أستاذه أحمد بن حنبل، وما كان للمدارس المختلفة أن تتكون في الأمة لتقدم لنا أحكاما مختلفة اقتضاها تغير الزمان واقتضاها تغير المكان. لكن الثابت أن هذا الدين جاء ليؤقلم المؤمن في زمانه ومكانه. الإسلام لم يجعل من المؤمن غريبا في زمانه ومكانه. المؤمن بعقيدته هو منفتح على غيره، لأن العقيدة تحصنه، ولأن الإيمان يحصنه، ولأن شرائع الإسلام تحصنه. فهو إذا انفتح على غيره لا يخشى ذوبانا ما دام لائذا بالله، رابطا الصلة بالله، قيامه مع الله وقعوده مع الله، فإنه يستطيع أن ينفتح على ما حوله. وقد رأينا أناسا تصوروا أن الدين كل الدين في أن يبتعدوا عن واقعهم. بعضهم زهد في هذا الواقع فدخل مسجدا وأغلق الباب دونه، وبعضهم دخل مغارة وأصبحوا سادة في تاريخنا، وبعضهم رفع السلاح على قومه وقال: أنتم كفار. وتكونت في زمننا حركات تكفير وهجرة هجرت المجتمع وابتعدت عنه، واعتبروا من خالفهم في الرأي أو خالفهم في الفهم للإسلام أعداء يجب أن يقاوموا ويجب أن يستبعدوا، فهجروهم. وبعضهم راح إلى الصحراء وأراد أن يؤسس مجتمعا خاصا به. هذه الحركات جميعا نأت عن الإسلام الصحيح وابتعدت عنه، وكانت سبة في وجه الإسلام، هذا الذي قام على أن الذي يخالط الناس ويصبر على أذاهم خير من الذي يهجرهم، وعلى أن المؤمن ليس إلا سبب تغيير في المجتمع الذي حوله بسلوكه، بأخلاقه، بآدابه، بقيمه التي يتمسك بها. أنتم يا إخوتي الكرام في هذا المجتمع الذي فتح أحضانه لكم وأصبح الجزء منكم حاملين لجنسيته، أبناؤكم ولدوا في هذه البلاد. لا تنسوا كما قال الأستاذ شخصيتكم المنحوتة بعقيدتكم وعبادتكم، فهذه قضية مجتمعكم يسمح لكم بمزاولتها ولا ينكرها عليكم لأنه مجتمع متعدد. ولكن ما زاد على ذلك من انفتاحكم على هذا المجتمع لتكسبوا منه تجارب غيركم، فهذا أمر أمركم به الإسلام. اليوم في الغرب تطرح علينا قضايا متعددة، قضية المرأة ووضعها في هذا المجتمع الغربي، هذه التي جاءت إلى هذه الأرض أو ولدت في هذه الأرض وهي تعتقد أن دينها الإسلام، وبعضها تحجب وبعضها لم يتحجب. هذه المرأة ليس من حقنا أن نعزلها عن الحياة، هذه المرأة ليس من حقنا أن نبعدها عن الفعل في مجتمع مؤهلة هي فيه إلى جانب أخيها الرجل بأن تكون فاعلة مغيرة. أنت يا أختي رأس القاطرة في التغيير الذي نرغب، وأنت مؤهلة في هذا المجتمع أمام شقيقتك الأمريكية التي لا تدين بدينك بأن تبرزي بأن قناعاتك الدينية ومعتقداتك الإيمانية لا تحول بينك وبين أن تزاولي مواطنتك باعتبارك امرأة صنوا للرجل بحكم الإسلام، ولك الحق في أن تعيشي في هذا المجتمع مرفوعة الرأس بإسلامك الذي لا يحجر عليك أن تكوني فاعلة في مجتمع تنضمين إلى مثيلاتك من النساء الأمريكيات لتكون الجمعيات ولتهبي لإعانة الفقراء والمساكين وجمع الأموال وزيارة المرضى وزيارة المسجونين مسلمين وغير مسلمين، لأنك تحملين عقيدة ولأنك تحملين إيمانا ولأنك تشعرين بأنك مكلفة من الله تعالى بأن تبرزوا أن الإسلام تظهر آثاره على الرجال والنساء. وأحذر إخوة الرجال، أحذرهم من عقلية تكونت في عقولهم بممارسة مخالفة للإسلام، هي ذلك الإرث الذي ورثناه من مجتمعات بعدت عن الإسلام ولم يستقطبها هذا الدين، فأثرت فيها نكرانا لحق المرأة واستبعادا لكيانها واحتقارا لدورها واعتبارها امرأة أعدت للولادة فقط أو للطهي في المطابخ، مع أنها كانت أم نبي وزوجة نبي وبنت نبي، وأهاب الله بأم النبي وبزوج النبي ورفع قدرها وباهى الملائكة بها. القضية الثانية التي تطرح: ماذا نفعل بأبنائنا الذين ولدوا في هذا المجتمع؟ باقي وقت 60 دقيقة 6. طيب يعني 6 دقائق بالعربي معناها 12 دقيقة بالأمريكاني. أبناؤنا الذين يولدون في هذا المجتمع والذين يقعدون على مقاعد الدراسة مع شبان من أمثالهم من الأمريكيين، بعضهم مسيحي وبعضهم يهودي وبعضهم لا يدين بدين، يجدون أنفسهم مقهورين في داخلهم، لأن اشتغال الشبان أمثالهم برياضات أو أنشطة ثقافية لا يتسنى لهؤلاء الشباب أن يزاولوه بحكم أن آباءهم وأمهاتهم يحذرونهم من هذا النشاط. ونقول هذه قضية وقضية هامة، بل هذه تطرح علينا قضية وسائل الإعلام الجديدة والفن والموسيقى والتمثيل والسينما وهي الوسائل المستحدثة في هذا العصر في القرن العشرين والقرن الحادي والعشرين، والتي أصبحت مثار اهتمام الناس جميعا، وهي المؤثرة على النفوس. وكم من خطيب يخطب، بل آلاف الخطباء يخطبون، فتأتي صورة واحدة أو 5 دقائق بفيلم أو مسلسل فتحطم خطبة الخطباء جميعا. أين نحن من هذه الوسائل التي تطرح اليوم بسوق نحن نعيش فيها ومطالبون بأن نعيش فيها؟ إخوتي الكرام، هذه وسائل، هذه آليات، والآلية لا تحرم ولا تحلل. الآلية تكون حراما إذا استعملت لحرام أو استعملت بحرام. فسكين أشتريه من سوق لأقتل به شخصا يصبح شرائي له ومسكي له حراما. أما ذلك الذي أشتريه لأقوم به حياتي وأقضي به شأني فهذا حلال محلل، لأني أقضي به شأنا حلالا. ونحن اليوم بعض مشايخنا يخوفوننا: إياكم والسينما، إياكم والمسلسلات، إياكم والتلفزيونات. أنت قادر الآن تغلق التلفزيون على ابنك؟ أنت قادر تمنع بنتك من أن تفتح الإنترنت وتتصل بفتاة في قعر الدنيا وتتحدث معها وتخاطب شابا وتخاطب فتاة؟ أم أنك تبقى الليل كاملا وأنت تتسمع عليها في بيتها من وراء باب وأنت تدرك أنها قادرة على أن تفعل الأفاعيل إذا غفلت عنها؟ القضية اليوم ليست قضية سد أبواب، وإنما هي قضية تهيئة جيل بأمرين: أمر أول تحصين بعقيدة وتحصين بقيم. أنا عندما أحصن ابني وبنتي بقيم لا أحتاج أن أشك بعد ذلك. صحيح أراقب من بعيد، أنظر، أنا أدخل في الليل فأشم جاكيتة أبنائي عندما كانوا في سن المراهقة، فزوجتي تقول لي: إيش تعمل؟ نقول لها: نشم. إيش تشم؟ قل لها: نشم. نلقاش ريحة دخان، سجاير، ريحة خمرة، ريحة لا أستطيع أن أجابهه لأن طوله كطولي ولحيته أطول من لحيتي، فلا أستطيع أن أشككه في سلوكه مباشرة، لكني أتابع من بعيد. نحن مطالبون بتحصينهم بهذه القيم، لكن نحن مطالبون يا شباب المسلمين، مطالبون بأن نفتك هذه الفنون من أصحابها، نفتكها منهم، لأننا لدينا قضايا نطرحها بواسطة آليات الفن كلها. لنا هموم، لنا مشاكل، لنا مجتمع يئن، لنا ظلم واستبداد وقهر، لنا تاريخ مظلم. نحن نحتاج أن نعبر عن ذلك، مش بخطابة الخطباء فقط أو كتابة الكاتبين فقط، وإنما عن طريق وسائل الفن المختلفة التي أباحها الله تعالى، والتي يحتاج منا أن نملأها بمضمون هو مضموننا وهو قضايانا وهو اهتماماتنا. وكم قدمنا رجلا وأخرنا أخرى ونحن لا ندرك أن التيار يمكن أن يأتي يوم فيحملنا جميعا نحو الفناء، يفنينا. أنا كنت في أحد البلاد الإسلامية زيارة، فوجدت شابا كان يتبعني لأن أعجبه هذا الخطاب، لكن لم يتجرأ أن يخاطبني أمام أئمة المسجد الذي صلينا فيه. لما انفرد بي قال لي: والله يا سيدي أنا راغب في فتاة أتزوجها، فطلبت من أسرتها أن أجلس معها وأتحدث إليها بمحضر والدها ووالدتها. قالوا: لا. أشوف وجهها؟ لا. أرسل والدتي وتصف لي وجهها. قال: ما دامت والدتك ستصف وجهها فإنه ممنوع على والدتك أن تأتي. فأخذت الشيخ من لحيته وهي أطول مني وقلت له: يا شيخ، أنتم تهيئون لثورة النساء ضد الإسلام؟ أنتم تملؤون قلوب الناس ضد الإسلام بسلوك ليس له صلة بالإسلام. فأنا أقول أنتم مؤهلون في هذا المجتمع المتنوع أن تعيشوا حياتكم التي لم يحرمها الله عليكم. قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق. الله فتح لنا أبوابا وجعل في حياتنا منفعة ومتعة، وكل مخلوقاته التي خلقها خلق فيها المنفعة والجمال. التفاحة منفعة ولكن فيها خد أحمر وخد أصفر، وطول وعرض ونسق يجعلني عندما أنظر إليها أرى جمالا. الله لم يخلق الجمل كتلة لحم، بل خلقه في صورة منظمة ليشعرني بأنه خلقه لركوبي وخلقه لأكلي وخلقه للجمال حتى أتفرج عليه. وكل الحياة خلق الله فيها الجمال، وخلق في عيني وفي نفسي حبا للجمال. فأنا عندما أمر أرى زهرة فأتوق إليها وأنظر إليها وأحس بإحساس غريب في نفسي وكأنني قد أكلت وشربت، لأن فيها غذاء روحي من جمال بثه الله فيها. إذن هذه قضية مطلوب على علماء المسلمين ودعاة الأمة أن ينظروا فيها ليساعدوكم عليها. الأمر الثالث الذي أقوله، أنتم في مجتمعات منظمة فيها مؤسسات، فيها انتخابات، فيها بلديات، فيها أحزاب متعددات. أنتم مطالبون بأن تسهموا بدوركم فيها وتعطوا رأيكم، لأنكم مواطنون كاملو الاستحقاقات، ولا تأتون بالفكرة التي ترسبت لدينا أيام الانحطاط عندما كنا محرومين من حقوقنا، وعندما كنا نعتبر أن ذهابنا للانتخاب أو عدم ذهابنا سيان، لأن غيرنا يصوت باسمنا في مغيبنا ودون إذننا، والانتخابات تفضي دائما وأبدا إلى 99.99%. نحن في مجتمع يحتاج منا أن نساهم فيه وأن نقول رأينا من منطلقاتنا، من قضايا نؤمن بها، من عقائدنا، من أصولنا. نحن مطالبون بأن نسهم في هذا المجتمع حتى نكون طرفا متأثرا ومؤثرا، وحتى نكون طرفا فاعلا، وحتى يكون لنا من خلال مؤسسات ظاهرة محترمة قدرة على أن نبلغ رأينا ونبلغ قضايانا ونبلغ ثقافتنا ونبلغ فكرنا. إخوتي الكرام، أنا أحييكم، أعتبر أنكم مرابطون، أعتبر أنكم تعانون، وتعانون لا فقط لأنكم انتقلتم من نمط اجتماعي إلى نمط ثانٍ، تعانون لأن الفكر الإسلامي الذي يقدم إليكم فكر قبع على ماض سحيق وأراد أن يبقي عليه ويلتزم به، ولم يدرك هذا الفكر أن أحكام الله منوطة بتغير الزمان والمكان، وأن الإسلام ليس نمطاً واحداً يعاد بحيثياته كلما تغير الزمان، وإنما هو أنماط متعددة تبقى روحها قائمة، عقيدتها وقيمها وأصولها لا تتغير، ولكن ثوبها يتدثر بلباس جديد كلما حل مكان جديد وزمن جديد. فكر متحجر يريد أن يقدم لنا الإسلام على أنه رجوع إلى القرن الثالث الهجري، وفي مقابله فكر إسلامي ثان يعتز بانتسابه للدين وأصوله وقيمه وآدابه، ولكنه منفتح على الواقع، يريد أن يؤثر في الواقع ويريد أن يغير الواقع نحو القيم التي يؤمن بها، ولا يعتدي على الناس ولا يسبهم ولا يشتمهم ولا ينكر عليهم ولا يكفرهم، ولكنه يفعل في عقول الناس ما يجعل الناس يدركون الحقائق بأكثر تبصر. فاختاروا لأنفسكم، هل تختارون أن تخرجوا من زمنكم وتعيشوا زمنا آخر، أم تختارون أن تعيشوا إسلامكم في زمنكم الذي تعيشون؟ أقول إن هذا الاختيار صعب، لكن هناك رجال يساعدون عليه. أعانكم الله وقوم خطاكم وجمعني بكم في ساعات مقبلة بعدد أكبر ووعي أكثر، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
جزا الله شيخنا وأستاذنا الشيخ عبد الفتاح خير الجزاء